Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Coach Sark, the Texas Longhorns, building an elite defensive line class in the 2026 cycle. Four-star defensive lineman Corey Wells from the state of Mississippi committing to Texas. This is not a state Texas goes into very often. One of the best players in the state, and quite frankly, one of the better defensive linemen that we see in the region. Why is this commitment so important? Really, for two different reasons. Number one, I think Coach Sark has a blueprint. As much as we want to talk about Arch Manning and the wide receivers, what Texas has done along the lines of scrimmage, both sides of the line of scrimmage, has really separated this football team over the last couple of years. But number two, specifically in 2026, you look at there ain't that many guys, especially in the Southeast, that look like Corey Wells. And so not only are you taking a lot of these guys away, or not only are you adding these kind of players to your roster, you're also keeping them away from teams like Georgia and teams like Alabama. Look, Coach Sark's been around this sport long enough to know, hey, what does it take to be the best program in the SEC? Well, follow the blueprint that Kirby Smart has followed, follow the blueprint that Nick Saban followed, and that is, hey, win the line of scrimmage. Texas has been pouring resources into winning the line of scrimmage over the last couple of years, and you're seeing it play out on the football field. Talk about a program that's had some of the best line of scrimmage play in the country. It's Texas. It ain't nobody talk about it because Arch Manning gets a little bit more clicks. What this team has done on both sides of the line of scrimmage, that's the reason Texas is my pick to win the national championship 2025. And that's the reason that this Texas program is going to be perennial national championship contenders as long as Coach Sark is going to be here. I mean, if Coach Sark continues to operate like this, you compete for national championships every single year. Corey Wells is really interesting. And we talked about Dylan Berryman yesterday morning. Corey Wells, different kind of body type that can play a very similar brand of football. Overwhelmingly powerful, has a little bit more frame, has a little bit more length. And I'll say this, I mean, at 6'5", 300 pounds, he's got some really, really good functional athleticism to his game, which is kind of rare. You look at a lot of these blue chipper defensive linemen coming out of high school, they're blue chips just because of the size. You look at Corey Wells and say there's a little bit of juice that's untapped there. That should excite a lot of Texas fans. I think Corey Wells, although ranked a little bit lower than Dylan Berryman, has a little bit of a higher ceiling in terms of the game record that he can be for Texas over the next couple of years. Now, Dylan Berryman probably going to be a guy that does a lot of two-gapping, does a lot of dirty work. I think Corey Wells has the ability to impact the game in a little bit more of a diverse way than a guy like Dylan Berryman because of that length, because of that athleticism. Want to talk a little bit more about Corey Wells? Want to talk about some of the other front seven defenders that Texas is trending for that are going to be on campus or that have been on campus? Because you look at this defensive line class and say, hey, we signed an elite class in 2025 with guys like Justice Terry and Josiah Sharman, Lance Jackson, Myron Charles. You're on track to signing an elite class in 2026 as well. Before we get into it, as always, the Texas fans, it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun talking this program over the next couple of weeks and months. They are trending for a ton of names and a lot of names that I really like. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into Corey Wells. This is what I appreciate the most about Corey Wells. You go back to how we talked about Dylan Berryman. It was really, really powerful kid, kind of short, stocky, a little bit of a tree stump. Probably not going to be a guy that goes for 15 tackles for loss and 10 sacks, but a guy that's going to do the dirty work. And I think that's very valuable, especially the way Texas recruits the linebacker position. I look at Corey Wells and say he can do that kind of stuff that Dylan Berryman can. With how powerful of an individual he is, he can do the dirty work, but he's also a penetrator. He also can use that length to win on the inside and get into the backfield, whether it's tackles for loss, whether it's sacks. I think his ability to be a little bit more of a game wrecker is there because this kid is naturally an extremely powerful individual that has the length and has the athleticism to really check all the boxes that you're looking for. I think Coach Sark recognized that Over the last couple of months, Texas went and got what, 4 or 5 interior defensive linemen in the portal. They did a really good job shoring up the biggest question we had about this football team rolling into 2025. But I don't think Coach Sark wants to be in that situation every single offseason. Because if you want to have an elite defensive line, you got to get those bodies at the line of scrimmage. The last 2 cycles, Texas has done that in a big way. What are the names that Texas is trending for in the front seven? Obviously, Jamarian Carlton, a little bit more of a game record penetrator, probably going to be a little bit more of a 3-tech, right? Dylan Berryman and a guy like Corey Wells, they are going to be your big noses. Now, I think Corey Wells can play a little bit of 3-tech, do a little bit of different things. Jamarian Carlton, really long, really athletic, has the ability to be that 10-plus sack a game kind of guy from the inside. What about Bryce Perry-Wright? I think he's probably going to hang out on the edge. He's going to be on campus this weekend for Texas. It's coming down to Texas, Clemson, Miami. Kind of sounds like the 3 teams to beat here. Bryce Perry-Wright reminds me a lot of Ruben Bain. We talked about him yesterday. Not as much of a Colin Simmons edge rusher, more of a horsepower edge rusher in terms of speed to power. Could play on the inside. I just don't know if he's going to get big enough, right? At 6'2", there's not a ton of frame left to get up to around 280 or 300 pounds and be a 3-tech. I think he's going to be awesome on the edge, and especially against the run, which kind of quietly nobody talks about. These Texas edge defenders against the run have been really good the last couple of years. You talk about why Texas has had the sack numbers they've had. I think it starts with stopping the run. Winning on first and second down, setting up those 3rd and long passing situations where you can pin your ears back and go get after the quarterback. How about a guy like Jake Cruel? About as day one ready as it gets. You're probably going to battle Florida. You're probably going to battle Oklahoma for Jake Cruel. Probably not the upside that a guy like Colin Simmons has. Holy smokes, is this guy about as blue chip as it gets, though? He ain't projecting much here. He's going to be a good football player for you and probably going to be a good football player early for you in his tenure. The last guy I'll just shout out, we're talking about front 7 guys, Xavier Griffin. I think Texas is like the dark horse here. I think there's a lot of buzz around Ohio State. There's obviously a lot of buzz around Alabama. Georgia, no doubt, is going to be in the mix on this one, too. I know Florida State's trying. We'll see if they end up getting into this one. Does this not make perfect sense for Coach Sark in Texas? What are you selling Xavier Griffin? We all know Texas, they'll have the firepower to go make this happen if they want to. I'm more talking about what you're selling this kid as a program as a whole, where you turn on the Anthony Hill tape and say, that is going to be your role in this Texas defense, because I'm not going to quite say they're the same kind of players, but they're pretty damn close. Where Xavier Griffin, the sideline speed, the ability to run and chase, it's there. Very similar to Anthony Hill, but the best part about his game is when you want to let the leash off him, put him right up on the edge, say, hey, go pin your ears back and get after the passer. That's where this kid excels. He kind of does all the same way we talked about Anthony Hill a couple of years ago, the same way we're talking about Xavier Griffin as well. There's not been I guess in my opinion, there's not a ton of programs across the country that let their linebackers have the impact on a football game that Texas has allowed Anthony Hill to have. And if you're Xavier Griffin, you want to be asked to do those kind of things because you're that good of a football player. What better place than Texas and what they've done with Anthony Hill? Love what they're doing, have loved what Texas has been doing. There's a reason that Texas has asserted themselves as the premier brand in college football. And there are going to be people who get up here and say, well, Coach Sark hasn't won a national championship yet. Look, if Coach Sark continues to operate the way that he's operating over the last 18, 24 months, this team's not going to win just one over the next 5 years. They're going to win a couple. That's just how Texas is doing it. We'll close it down there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, to the Texas fans, buckle in. I think it's going to be a really fun next couple of weeks. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.